Scores of Republicans and dozens of Democrats prepare to go nose to nose with President Obama over the Keystone XL pipeline, while he ridicules talk of its potential benefits. This is Special Report. Good evening, I'm Brett Baer. Next year's showdown between President Obama and a Republican-controlled Congress over the Keystone pipeline may be upstaged before it even begins. Today, the GOP-dominated House passed a bill to get the project moving, and Democrats eager to save at least one endangered Senate seat could bring that chamber on board. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel has tonight's top story.
The bill is passed. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
31 Democrats joined with Republicans in the House to pass legislation authorizing construction of the Keystone XL pipeline 252 to 161. Louisiana Republican Congressman Bill Cassidy is the chief sponsor.
The bill considered today that I introduced is the language asked for by the Senate. So we are going to make it as easy as possible for the Senate to finally get a bill to the President's desk that approves this long overdue Keystone XL pipeline.
This has become a central issue in the Louisiana Senate runoff coming on December 6th. Cassidy is facing Democrat incumbent Mary Landrieu, and both candidates are trying to show voters in Louisiana they are strong on energy issues. So Landrieu is rounding up Democratic support and pushing this bill ahead of a Senate vote on Tuesday.
I am very hopeful that we will have, and I believe we will have, not 60, but probably 61 votes for the Keystone pipeline.
This is the 9th time the House has backed the pipeline project, and Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has refused to allow a vote up until now. A top Republican says this isn't about Democrats changing their tune, it's about saving Landrieu.
If the Democrats had been half as concerned about creating jobs for the American people as they are about saving the job of one politician in Louisiana, this would have been done years ago.
Meanwhile, spokesperson Jen Psaki says Congress's push doesn't have an impact on the State Department's process, which has lasted more than 2.5 years.
We are continuing to move ahead with our thorough, transparent, and objective review of the Keystone pipeline application in accordance with the executive order.
Supporters believe they have enough Democrat support to reach the 60-vote threshold. Their hope is putting enough pressure on President Obama to sign the bill. Brett?
That's a big question. Mike, what's the latest on immigration up there?
Well, Vice President Biden announced a program granting refugee status today to young people under the age of 21 from 3 countries, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, whose parents are legally residing in the U.S. You'll recall the surge of young people at our border this summer. Well, Biden announced the program granting some kind of refugee status to these young people starting in early December, noting vicious gang violence and poverty in those countries. House Judiciary Chairman Bob Goodlatte is not happy, calling this a government-sanctioned border surge, and he says once President Obama acts on his executive action granting legal status to an estimated 5 million people, this will say to the rest of the family, come on up. Brett?
All right, Mike, more on this with the panel. If President Obama is worried about the anticipated political apocalypse over immigration, he's not showing it during his overseas trip. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry is traveling with the president tonight and shows us a defiant leader, seemingly willing to call the Republicans' bluff.
Appearing at a news conference at the personal home where Aung San Suu Kyi was held under house arrest for the better part of 20 years, President Obama urged Burma to stay on the right course toward democracy, even as he declared that upon returning home, he'll bull ahead on executive orders over immigration that Republicans charge violate the American Constitution.
I indicated to Speaker Boehner several months ago that if, in fact, Congress failed to act, I would use all the lawful authority that I possess to try to make the system work better. And that's going to happen. That's going to happen before the end of the year. They have the ability to fix the system. What they don't have the ability to do is to expect me to stand by with a broken system in perpetuity.
Hours earlier, Speaker John Boehner charged the president is drawing the opposite message from the midterm election drubbing.
Every administration needs this and needs that, needs all kinds of things. And, you know, if he wants to go off on his own, There are things that he's just not going to get.
That includes nominations the president wants to move through the Senate, while Democrat Harry Reid is still in charge, especially his pick for Attorney General, Loretta Lynch. The president also needs a continuing resolution to keep the government open beyond December 11th. And Boehner warned unilateral action on immigration threatens to blow up those talks, even as he stopped short of endorsing a government shutdown that could boomerang on the GOP.
Our goal here is to stop the president from violating his own oath of office and violating the Constitution. It's not to shut down the government.
A senior administration official said early Friday there's enough concern about a potential shutdown. The president may hold back on immigration until mid-December, though executive action is still possible as early as next week, because the president is eager to send the signal he's trying to get back on offense, ranging from a vigorous defense of the climate deal he signed in China to feisty comments about the Keystone pipeline that strongly hinted he's ready to veto mostly Republican efforts to approve it legislatively.
I have to constantly push back against this idea that somehow the Keystone pipeline is either this massive jobs bill for the United States or is somehow lowering gas prices. Understand what this project is. It is providing the ability of Canada to pump their oil, send it through our land down to the Gulf, where it will be sold everywhere else. And it doesn't have an impact on U.S. gas prices.
Republicans beg to differ and charge the administration has squandered several years studying the pipeline.
One of the other things I ran on is seizing this great opportunity, this American energy renaissance that's happening not only in Alaska but all over the country. We've had a federal government that's not doing that.
Now it's on to Australia for the G20 summit, where the president is expected to meet again with Russian President Vladimir Putin about the deteriorating situation in Ukraine, before making it home late Sunday to deal with a string of other crises, from ISIS to the storm that's about to be unleashed over executive orders. Brett?
Ed Henry traveling with the president. Ed, thank you. President Obama is on shaky political ground because of the pounding his party took in the midterms, losing the Senate and surrendering more of the House. Chief political correspondent Carl Cameron tonight on where Democrats are and what they're doing about it.
Behind closed doors at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Washington, D.C., the Liberal Democracy Alliance of super-rich donors, organizations, and political action committees gathered to regroup after 2014's blowout midterm losses.
We want to legislate. We're not for stalling.
Though Senator Harry Reid of Nevada was re-elected Senate Democratic leader this week, since the election, the Democratic Party has sunk another 6 points to a new record low 36% favorable rating. At least 6 Democrats publicly did not support Reid for leader, putting a spotlight on divisions and dissatisfaction on the left. Reid says he got the message.
We're going to expand our leadership. We're going to do things a little differently, a different approach. And the one thing that came out of the caucus without any second guessing is that we have to continue fighting for the middle class.
In defeat, Democrats are split on whether to take a more centrist or more liberal approach. Reid tapped one of each for his new leadership team. Massachusetts firebrand Senator Elizabeth Warren, arguably the feistiest populist progressive in the Senate, is now, quote, strategic policy advisor to the Democratic Policy and Communications Center. Translation, she'll work on talking points with the Senate Democrats' war room.
Wall Street is doing very well. CEOs are bringing in millions more, and families all across this country are struggling. I am grateful to the caucus for giving me a chance to be part of that fight.
But many wealthy Democratic donors are uneasy about the Occupy Wall Street-style rhetoric of the Warren wing of their party. So Reid has also tapped Senator John Tester, a moderate from conservative Montana, to head the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, primarily in charge of fundraising and candidate recruitment. The problem for Democrats trying to improve their image, of course, remains their president and policies. Mr. Obama's reluctance to approve the Keystone XL pipeline and promised immigration executive orders are expected to worsen partisan gridlock. While Latino voters were not decisive in 2014, both parties know they could be in the 2016 White House race.
If you want to win presidency, either party, you have to handle this in one way or another.
Both parties say they want immigration reform. The dilemma for Democrats is their president's about to nullify existing laws passed by Congress, which is about to have GOP majorities in both chambers that think the president is seriously overreaching. Brett.
Okay, Carl, thank you. Up next, the man who calls you stupid over his Obamacare plan is trying to explain it all to you in a comic book. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 42 in Omaha, where another Ebola patient will be treated. A surgeon working in Sierra Leone will be flown to Nebraska Medical Center tomorrow. The doctor is a citizen of that country, but is also a permanent U.S. resident and lives in Maryland. WDBD in Jackson, Mississippi, with investigators trying to determine the cause of that massive fire we showed you last night on the grounds of the State Agriculture and Forestry Museum. State officials say a barn and the children's barnyard are a total loss there. And this is a live look at San Francisco from our affiliate KTVU. The big story there tonight, an explosion in a classroom under construction at Vallejo High School this morning. Authorities say one employee sustained a burn to his hand. There were no students present, thankfully. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.